Every cycle produces its own fantasy about easy money. The details change, the human weakness does not. One decade it is flipping houses with no money down. Another decade it is option day trading done from a phone in a coffee shop. Another decade it is cryptocurrency riches achieved between breakfast and lunch. Then it becomes dropshipping. Then affiliate funnels, then digital products sold by people who have never built anything durable themselves. Then the same old appetite for easy wealth gets dressed in new language and sold back to the public as though history had not already seen the same emotion wearing different clothes. I have lived long enough to know that whenever a great many people are making money mostly by talking about making money, caution is required. That is especially true online. The internet did not repeal economics. It only accelerated distribution, and artificial intelligence did not repeal economics either. It simply changed which tasks still command payment and which ones have already become too cheap, too easy, or too replaceable to build a serious life around. That is what I want to talk about, not hype, not fantasy, not how to sound ambitious on social media, how to think clearly about making money online in 2026 if your goal is not a little excitement, but actual wealth. If I were forced to reduce the whole online opportunity set into a single organizing principle, I would say it this way. There are 4 buckets. The first bucket is dead work. The second bucket is skill, for cash work. The third bucket is outcome, base systems work. The fourth bucket is asset, building work. Most people stay poor because they either live in bucket 1 or keep jumping between the other 3 before anything has time to mature. That is the real issue. Not lack of opportunity, lack of staying power, lack of honest sorting, and lack of respect for what actually creates economic value. Let me begin with the dead bucket because this is where a great many people waste their best years. The dead bucket contains things that look easy, sound modern, and usually allow the beginner to feel as though he has started a business when in fact he has merely entered a crowded race toward shrinking margins. I put NFT flipping there, I put casual crypto trading there, I put most multi-level marketing schemes there, I put basic captioning, low-level data entry, generic microtasks, stale print, on-demand junk, and the sort of day trading done by people who enjoy the identity of speculation more than the reality of edge. The reason these belong in the dead bucket is not that no one anywhere has ever made money doing them. Of course, some have. Someone always wins a hand. The point is that they are structurally weak. A useful business should become stronger as your knowledge compounds. A dead activity becomes harder as competition rises. AI replaces simple labor, and the customer realizes the work was never scarce enough to deserve lasting margins. That is the first test I use now. Is this work getting stronger with technology, or is technology making it cheaper by the month? If the answer is that AI can already do it faster, cheaper, and well enough for the average buyer, then the work is in danger even if a few holdouts still get paid. People love lying to themselves here because bucket 1 work gives them a seductive emotional bargain. It gives them the feeling of starting without demanding the discomfort of building. That is why the dead bucket is so crowded. It flatters the beginner. NFT flipping did that beautifully for a while. It made people think that buying and reselling social excitement was a business model. It was not. It was a casino ticket with a technology costume. Low-level data entry is the same category for a different reason. Once software can perform the task instantly and cheaply, you no longer own a scarce skill. You own a shrinking job description. The same is true for basic captioning, generic subtitling, and many micro-gig tasks that used to have a small labor market and now have almost none. Print on demand sounds clever because the inventory risk looks low. Fine, but if everyone is printing the same forgettable shirt and competing in the same channels with the same templates and the same tired humor, you do not have a business. You have a crowded catalog inside an algorithm. Day trading is perhaps the most dangerous of the lot because it allows people to confuse stimulation with progress. A person feels sharp, informed, fast, and modern while sitting in front of screens making decisions. He has no enduring edge in. He is not building an asset, he is renting adrenaline. That is a very costly rental. The same basic warning applies to crypto trading for most people. If you are not a real specialist with true edge, genuine risk controls, and the temperament to survive a deeply predatory environment, then calling yourself a trader is usually just a more flattering way of saying you donate tuition to volatility. So I ask 3 questions before I take any online income idea seriously. Can AI already do most of this work? Is the market for this work shrinking? And is it easier to lose money than to build a durable edge? If the answer to any of those is yes, I move on. The world is too full of real problems to waste years solving dead ones. Now let us move to the second bucket. This is where real money begins for many people. Not because it is glamorous, because it is honest. Bucket 2 is skill, for cash work. It is where someone who does not yet own capital distribution software or a team can still create meaningful momentum by solving a clear problem for a customer quickly and directly. This bucket will not usually make you permanently rich on its own. it will do something more important. First, it will teach you how money is actually exchanged. It will teach you how clients think. It will teach you what pain sounds like when a buyer is truly willing to pay to remove it. And if you are smart, it will give you the raw material needed to move into the more scalable buckets later. This is why I respect it. The easiest real online money in 2026 is often built around a simple equation. Take a skill the market still values. Use AI to increase speed and reduce production friction. Map that skill to a business outcome somebody already wants. Then get paid to deliver the result. Notice what is not in that equation. No magical audience, no brand deal from nowhere, no breakthrough app on day one, no heroic startup mythology, just a skill, a pain point, a customer, and an outcome. That is how many durable businesses begin. Short-form editing can live here, not because editing is a dream worth worshiping, but because the content economy is still huge, and a good editor who can help creators and businesses turn long material into useful short-form assets can get paid quickly if he is competent and responsive. Social media copywriting can live here for the same reason. Businesses still need words that attract attention, clarify an offer, and move buyers toward action. AI helps draft. It does not remove the need for someone who can understand the business problem and shape the message around the result. AI chatbot setup for small businesses belongs here too. A local business owner does not need a lecture on the future of machine intelligence. He needs fewer missed leads, fewer repetitive calls, and fewer wasted staff hours. If you can set up an AI system that answers questions, qualifies leads, books appointments, or handles routine interactions, you are not selling novelty. You are selling saved time and recovered revenue. That is a real sale. The same goes for AI receptionist setups, UGC coordination, and virtual assistants. Rich and busy people hate wasting time. Small business owners hate losing money to disorganization. If you can help them get time back or get revenue in faster, you are already standing in a market that pays. That is the heart of bucket 2. You are not selling effort. You are selling a measurable relief. The great mistake beginners make in this bucket is they still talk as though they are selling labor by the hour. That is exactly how they trap themselves. Never begin by selling your time if you can describe the business in terms of a result. If a dentist needs more booked consultations, frame the work around booked consultations. If a creator needs more clips per week, frame the work around delivered clips that match a standard. If a local service business needs missed calls turned into scheduled appointments, frame the work around scheduled appointments. Outcomes organize value much more cleanly than hours do. The buyer does not really care that you spent 4 hours or 9. The buyer cares that the problem moved. That is why a proper offer matters so much. A strong offer says 3 things. I understand the pain, I know the result you want, and I can remove enough of your risk that saying yes feels easier than staying stuck. This is also why bucket 2 is often the best place for a beginner to start. It creates motion, it creates confidence, it creates case studies, it creates direct market feedback. Most of all, it teaches that the market pays not for your hopes, but for your usefulness. That lesson is worth a fortune. Now, bucket 3 is where the game becomes much more interesting. This is outcome-based systems work. This bucket sits between freelancing and real asset ownership. Here you are no longer just performing a valuable task. You are increasingly building a system around the task so that the work becomes repeatable, packageable, and eventually delegable. This is where online money starts changing from income into enterprise. And the distinction matters. Plenty of people make decent money online and never get much richer because they are still the machine. If they do not work, the money stops. If they get sick, the pipeline dries up. If they lose enthusiasm, the whole structure slows. That is not a business in the strongest sense. That is a job with a nicer logo. Bucket 3 begins when the process itself becomes the product. AI automation agencies live here. LinkedIn growth systems live here. Micro software businesses live here. AI content agencies live here. High-quality motion graphic operations can live here. Any business where a result can be repeatedly delivered through a combination of skill, process, tooling, and growing team leverage belongs here. The reason this bucket is so powerful is that businesses will pay much more when you move from doing tasks to solving measurable growth or efficiency problems. A business owner is happy to pay someone a few $1,000s. If that person removes a bottleneck worth 10 times more, that is the whole secret. So if you build AI automations that save a business dozens of staff hours each month, or create a lead system that reliably brings in qualified appointments, or deploy content systems that consistently grow distribution and inbound demand, you are no longer a helper in the eyes of the client. You are part of the revenue architecture that is worth real money. This bucket also tends to create recurring revenue more naturally, which is one of the most important transitions in the whole online income ladder. One-time projects are fine for proof. They are not ideal for peace. Recurring retainers tied to a continuing outcome do something psychologically beautiful. They let you stop starting over every month. That matters because starting over every month keeps people in survival thinking. Recurring contracts give you room to build process, improve delivery, hire carefully, and think beyond next Tuesday. The source material you uploaded correctly emphasizes this point. Selling outcome-based monthly retainers rather than one-off work is one of the first real transitions from freelancer thinking to business thinking. That is exactly right. Fay file site Fay turn 89 file 1 Fay turn 89 file 14 Fay. Now, let me say something about AI here. A great many people talk as though AI itself is the business. Usually it is not. AI is the force multiplier. It can increase speed, reduce labor friction, improve turnaround, compress iteration time, and make a small operator look much larger than he is. But the market does not pay you merely because you know which tools exist. It pays when you combine the tools with a clear business result. That is what many people misunderstand. They collect tools the way children collect trading cards. That is not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is taking a tool and inserting it into a paying problem. And because the problems remain, there will be plenty of money in bucket 3 for people who can actually connect the tool to the outcome. But bucket 3 still has a weakness. It can become a very profitable prison if you never continue onward. Which brings me to bucket 4. Bucket 4 is asset, building work. This is where the real long-term upside sits. This is where you stop merely earning good money and start building things that can be sold, licensed, scaled, or owned beyond your daily presence. It is the hardest bucket. It also matters the most if you want something far bigger than income. Software products belong here. Equity investing in strong founders can belong here if you have the capital and judgment. Buying neglected small businesses and improving them with technology and better systems belongs here. Building a personal brand that becomes a distribution machine for products and equity belongs here. Subscription communities with real recurring value can belong here. Licensing playbooks, frameworks, and systems intellectual property can belong here. The common thread is very simple. You are building or buying an asset, and assets are what eventually separate rich from merely well-paid. A salary can be large and still stop the moment your attention does. An asset can continue producing while you sleep, travel, read, or do something else entirely. That is why ownership matters so much. It creates leverage without requiring equal increments of time. I have always liked that at Berkshire. We did not get rich by trying to work more hours than everyone else forever. We got rich by owning productive assets whose economics continued operating after the original effort was long spent. That is the great transition from effort being the engine to ownership being the engine. Software is a powerful example because when it works, the economics are extraordinary. Build once, sell repeatedly, improve margins through scale, and in the best cases produce recurring revenue from a product that solves a real problem over and over again with low incremental delivery cost. That is a beautiful business model. Buying small businesses and using technology to improve them is another excellent example. A boring campground, a local service company, or an outdated operations. Heavy enterprise can become far more valuable once its booking, communication, staffing, maintenance, and follow-up systems are improved. That is not glamorous. It is extremely lucrative. This is one reason I have always preferred practical economics over fashionable stories. The world is full of simple under-managed assets. Most people ignore them because they want something exciting. I would rather own a strong, boring machine than admire an exciting, weak one. There is also something very important about bucket 4 that most people miss. It usually requires years of apparently flat progress before the shape changes dramatically. This is where the source material is absolutely right. You do not get the hockey stick without the flat years first. That principle is not merely true in startups. It is true in almost everything worth building. Fay Felicite. Fay turn 89 file 6, Fay turn 89 file 11. Fay people see the later explosion and imagine the builder had a lucky run. They did not see the years of learning, refining, selling, failing, adjusting, hiring badly, hiring better, fixing offers, narrowing markets, improving systems, and building distribution before anyone cared. That is why so few people ever reach bucket 4 in a meaningful way. Not because the bucket is inaccessible, because they keep leaving. Which brings me to the real villain in all of this. Shiny object syndrome. I am not being theatrical when I say this. Destroys more online businesses than bad markets, weak tools, or limited starting capital. Most people do not fail because they chose a terrible path. They fail because they keep resetting the clock. They try freelancing for 8 weeks. Then a new opportunity video appears and they switch. Then AI software looks hotter. Then content looks easier. Then e-commerce looks sexy again. Then crypto rips. Then personal branding feels exciting. Then a friend makes money doing something else. Then they change direction again. Each move feels like intelligence because it allows them to preserve a very flattering story. I did not fail. I pivoted. Sometimes that is true. More often it means they fled the uncomfortable middle where every real business looks clumsy before it looks obvious. The market rewards sustained relevance. It rarely rewards scattered potential. This is why the instruction from your uploaded text that most deserves respect is the instruction to commit for 1,000 days. That is not a motivational line, it is structural wisdom. 1,000 days is enough time for learning to stack, for relationships to deepen, for distribution to compound, for offers to improve, for reputation to matter, and for the early noise of incompetence to fade into the background. Fay file site Fay turn 89 file 11. Fay most people never stay anywhere near that long. They want to be right quickly. But entrepreneurship is not mainly a test of being right quickly. It is a test of staying in the ring long enough to become dangerous. That is why content is so valuable too, if used correctly. People think content is vanity. Sometimes it is, used properly. Content is documentation, distribution, trust building, recruiting, deal flow, and market education all at once. It gives the market more ways to find you. And in a world overflowing with competent people, nobody knows exist. Distribution is often the missing bridge between skill and income. This is why I would tell anyone trying to build online income in 2026 the following. First, sort brutally. Do not sit in the dead bucket pretending you are early. Second, use bucket 2 to get your first real money by solving clear pains with real outcomes. Third, use bucket 3 to turn useful work into repeatable systems and recurring revenue. Fourth, push toward bucket 4 whenever you have enough proof, enough stability, or enough capital to begin building or buying assets, rather than merely renting your labor. And fifth, do not reset the clock every time the middle gets dull. That dull middle is where the foundations are poured. Now let me say something about difficulty. People always ask which bucket is best. That is the wrong question. The better question is which bucket matches your current reality. If you are broke, inexperienced, and unknown, I do not want to hear about owning an empire by next quarter. I want you in bucket 2, learning how clients buy, what outcomes matter, and how to deliver under pressure. If you already have a useful skill and some traction, then bucket 3 becomes very attractive, because now the issue is not whether you can work. The issue is whether the work can be systematized if you have capital network, scar tissue, and patience. Then bucket 4 is where extraordinary upside begins. There is no shame in moving through these, in order, in fact. That is how most real success stories happen. The beginner thinks he must leap into the most glamorous game immediately. The mature operator understands that stages exist for a reason. You do not try to own a factory before you have learned how products move. You do not try to scale a team before you can sell. You do not try to buy an asset before you can recognize the economics that make it worth owning. That is why I like simple ladders. They protect people from ambition that outruns structure. And in finance, ambition without structure is expensive. I have said for years that the market is a device for transferring money from the active to the patient. There is a related truth in building wealth online. The internet transfers opportunity from the distracted to the focused. That is the real separator in 2026. Not AI alone, not cleverness alone. Focus one useful skill, one buyer, one offer, one channel, one repeatable result, one enoughly long runway. You can do almost anything. You simply cannot do everything at once and still expect compounding to work in your favor. That is true in investing. It is true in business. It is true in life. So if I had to reduce the whole subject into one line, I would say this. Do not ask what sounds easiest. Ask what gets stronger the longer you stay. That question alone will save people years, because the dead bucket gets weaker with time. Bucket 2 gets stronger as skill improves. Bucket 3 gets stronger as systems and reputation compound. Bucket 4 gets strongest of all because ownership finally begins carrying the weight. That is how I would think about making money online in 2026. Not as a hunt for a hack, as a progression from usefulness to systems to assets. The hacks change too fast. Economics do not. And economics, in the long run, always win.